Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, evening, wherever in the beautiful world you are. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I have with me today the beautiful Catherine Edwards. How are you, Catherine? So good to see you again.
Yeah, it seems like the whole world's changed since we last spoke yet again. And I'm okay today. I'm better today. It's been a bit of a tough week, and I think this is important to realize that everyone's has their different ups and downs. And when people are, so quick to throw stones and judge people, you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes for people, do you? You really don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this is also part of the reason we're addressing this topic today, which really is about embracing our fears. I think we're so prone to resisting the things we don't like. We kind of have this kill culture as well. If you don't like spider, you kill it. If you see a snake in your garden, you chop its head off, mostly, right? That sort of thing. So if we don't understand something, we're bound to resist it and want to get rid of it, right? Yeah. And not really want to deal with it, but really within the dealing of it is where the true spiritual alchemy lies, actually. So I think it's such a valuable topic that we're chatting about at this time, because I'm sure it must be the same for you. I mean, there's just craziness happening. I mean, look at what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
The Hawaii fires and everything around that. I mean, yesterday as well, we were on, just when I was on air, I think just before Bryce's show yesterday, actually, Greece was on fire.
Yeah, and France is horrendous on the French-Spanish border, and people have stopped talking about the Canadian fires, but that's still affecting not only loads of people, but loads of wildlife as well, because, the pollution levels are off the scale, which is going to have long-term effects for the ability for plants to grow, for crops to grow, for animals, diseases, for humans, diseases. And I think this is why it's such an important topic, today, to talk about fear and how we do embrace it, transmute it, recognize it. Because I've had over the last week so many people reach out to me, which I really appreciate when they do. But it's just horrendous, the state of adrenaline that people are living on. And it's almost like the more you know, the more you wish you didn't know. Sometimes it's really comfortable to bury your head in the sand and see why people do it, because we talk about being in the present moment, and we all understand what stress, and fear is a very extreme form of stress, does to us on a physiological level and an emotional level. And yet anyone who's really questioning what's going on in the world, their levels of, I know not everyone deals with it with anxiety. Some people are able to take on the information and not embody it in that way. And those people that have done that work, is really important to share that for others, because I'm seeing everyone reaching out just desperately, like, what can we do? What can we do? And they don't know what they can do at an individual level. It's overwhelming for people. It's all very well say, get up and take action. But these things are so big, it's really hard for people at an individual level to actually think, well, okay, where shall I direct my energy for the best effect?
And I think your last sentence just kind of put it all together. It's really about directing one's energy to get the best effect, right? Because we understand that we're spiritual beings. Life is spiritual. So if we spiritual before we become physical. And then after physicality, we go back to being spiritual again. So it really is, and this is what I say to people so often. And it's I think it's maybe an overly stated statement, so it doesn't really have pack the punch that it should. But if we really think about this, it really is, we are not human beings trying to be spiritual. You see, this right there, and this is where I often get criticized, especially when it comes to religion and stuff like this. I really get, but I just take it on the chin. You can see I've got a bruise on my chin. I woke up with a bruise on my chin there, but I don't want to
take it on the nose. That's why my nose is so big. It's there to protect.
Yeah, but you
Before in before everyone else gets it in. Yeah.
Exactly. So let's think about what that means. Right. We are indoctrinated with the fact by churches, and I say churches because they are the main culprits of it, but we understand churches are predominantly sent to control people.
Yeah.
So along with that indoctrination comes your schooling system, which we know, especially since the 60s, has been controlled and indoctrinated as well. So along with the schooling system, religious education is compulsory. I don't know what it's like with you guys, but I know with us it certainly was. Religious studies were part of the curricula, whether you were religious or not. If you were Jewish or something, you didn't have to attend because it was mainly sort of a Christian school or whatever, the community. But my point with that is that we indoctrinated from a very young age that we are bad, that we are, think about how we were parented, right? And that comes from our parents. Children are seen and not heard. Stop being naughty. I'm going to whip your ass if you cry. If you shout too loudly, you're going to embarrass the family. If you do this, then that. Everything is you have to be contained within a certain vessel in order to be accepted. Now, I want to just say, I'm not talking that I'm well aware that there are families possibly out there who have not had this, but I think this is the run of the mill. So we grow up thinking we've got to prove ourselves. And along with that comes religion that tells us we better behave. Because if you're not behaving, and if you don't say your prayers and read your Bible and go to church or Sunday school or whatever, then you're not a Christian. That's kind of like, and only by being a Christian do you get back to going to heaven.
Exactly.
Back to God's good graces. Now, there's a fundamental flaw within that premise, because automatically we're born feeling like we are indebted. We are not good enough. We have to prove ourselves to be worthy. So that it automatically creates anxiety, right? Or fear, or whatever it is. There can be a host of psychological and emotional issues that come from that. My belief is this, and I'm not saying it took me a short while to turn my mind, because I too, thank God I wasn't born into a religious indoctrination, but I come from a family where I was the fourth daughter, and after me came the first son and the second son. I fought for my place. Plus I had gifts that others didn't understand, and that I was seeing and feeling and realizing things that I couldn't speak to anyone about, So, but through that process, and as I went on in life, something became very clear to me, that I do not have to do anything to prove my worthiness to my Creator.
Yeah.
I've come here to fuck up. Excuse my language. I've come here to fuck up. What we do here. So why would I be punished for making mistakes? If you whipped a child's ass every time the child fell when it was learning to walk, that child would never ever get up. It would stay on the ground. So we are here to make mistakes. We are here to grow through our mistakes. We are here to get lost and then find ourselves again through that process. And that's where a lot of people in that state of maybe disconnectedness or loss have anxieties and fears. And then this fear breeds the sense of I'm not good enough, da-da-da-da. And we know the whole psychological effect and the knock-on effect that has on us and our society, right? So if we can all just, in my opinion, get back to the knowledge that we have to do nothing to get into God's good graces. By the mere fact that we are here and alive means that we are worthy. You know, the first law in this universe is the law of receiving. But in order to receive, let's say in order to receive life, if you are sitting here, you've received life. And in order to receive that life, God would have had to have given you life by breathing it into you, so to speak. So giving and receiving are synonymous. They cannot be separated. But we get imbalanced there. We feel we've got to give too much or take in order to have or whatever. So that's where we have the imbalance. If we get to that place of knowing innately, I'm here because I'm part of my creator. My creator decided I'm worthy. And if we can just sit with that and marinate in that, that changes everything.
Yeah, and allow other people to do that, because I've never seen such obvious judgment as we do have in our community on the truther community. And we all hate that word, truth community, but that's the label that is there. So let's not get hung up on that. But it's so fascinating to see people saying, yes, well, my truth's better than yours. It's unbelievable. The thing is, if we can just all accept that we're here to learn and we're here to contribute and to give and receive, as you say, this judgment comes from a place of fear. So when people are putting out there saying, well, you're listening to someone who's corrupted or infiltrated or anything, yes, we should all be questioning the information, but questioning it from what place in your heart? Are you genuinely wanting to learn and listen, or are you looking just to criticize and find fault? Because exactly. Let's take some of the guests that we both have. You have guests that have been absolutely involved and understand from an intricate first-hand level about how the Illuminati work. Well, they're now sharing those gifts to make the world a better place, but they had to be involved in that to be able to gain the knowledge, to be able to share, so that we can all open our eyes. I talk a lot to cult survivors. So why do I do that? You do too, because there's so much to learn from that, because we're all being brainwashed right from the moment we are born. But once we all accept we're all being brainwashed, it's not a competition. It's not a competition in grief. It's not a competition in fear. It's not a competition who knows everything. Why can't we all watch to learn and contribute and take action to learn and contribute? And when it doesn't work, as you say, just like a toddler who gets up and tries again, we get up and try again. But this horrible human condition, and I do think in this community, it's absolutely horrific, as they say they want to look for truth. They say they want to look what's going on, but only if it agrees with their truth, and therein lies the problem of human nature. You do not get that in any other species. And I think it's quite ironic that the people that set themselves up on that pedestal to be the all singing, all knowing people are actually behaving in that, because when you know better, you should do better.
I agree. And, when you truly are in that place of all knowing or all seeing, it's actually very humbling. It doesn't mean you don't have an opinion or you don't say your say, but, you allow others to have theirs as well. And you don't shout from the treetops about what others should be doing with their lives. And that's exactly where the judgment comes in. You see, because anything, in my world, there's two basic energies from which we create. Love, which is the all, everything. And then love, in my opinion, does not have an opposite. But for layman's terms, let's give it the opposite of fear.
Yeah.
Which is false evidence appearing real. Fear is simply the absence of love, or the absence of light. If we look at love as light and fear as the dark, it really is the absence of light. So in other words, just like a switch has gone off, you've switched something off in your mind, or you've disconnected from something, or you've turned a tap off something. You can equate it to anything physical that stops energy from flowing, because everything in life is energy. So when we realize, when we get to the place of being completely morbid, depressed, and no matter what life has dealt you, whether it's people having done things to you, or whether you have happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then that happened, I always say we're never in the wrong place at the wrong time. We're always in the right place at the right time. When we're looking at our bodies being resonance chambers, because we are created from energy. Everything in life is energy. And anyone who thinks that's new age needs to seriously go and educate yourself, because energy is what exists. It's what creates everything. So when you understand that about yourself and you can apply those laws to yourself, that's when we start rising our frequency. And that's when we start elevating out of the fears, because the fears hold us back. It's the lead in the spiritual alchemy. So if you're finding yourself constantly sick, constantly tired, constantly at odds with the world, constantly fighting with your family, and I'll put my hand up to that from time to time. Yeah. But hey, I have a big clan. We're a strong-minded clan, and we actually say our say. That's wonderful, but we kind of get it. What I'm saying is that if there's always things that you're feeling shortchanged in life, then you are not allowing yourself to be in the receiving mode of what God or your creator or source is offering you. You see, it's always on offer. It depends then whether you are receiving it or not. And that is up to you. And this is what I say again about religions, because so many religions will pray to God or Jesus or whatever their denomination is and ask for forgiveness. And Jesus says, yes, I forgive you for your transgressions. Now it's up to us to receive that forgiveness and act in accordance with it. Act as a forgiven person is acting. Most people don't believe, so they cut that off all the time, and they question all the time, and they overthink, and they overread their Bible, and they throw their verses out. And when I see that, I go, shh, just calm down. Think about what you say. What are you feeling about the thing you say? That's so important.
Yeah.
Because it's always your projection. Always. Yeah. It cannot be another way. And because we're always projecting, and law of attraction states energy is going to attract its same vibration, right? That's written in the laws of the earth. You're going to be migrating towards people of a similar consciousness. Like attracts.
Because I don't have that. In no stage in my life have I ever had anyone quoting the Bible at me, ever. I mean,
lucky you.
It's just
lucky you.
It's like
apparently it's my lot.
Yeah, you see, this is the thing. I haven't grown up in that environment, and actually, it's so fascinating to have things where this is one of the best gifts, I think, about the technology that we can criticize so much, of having these conversations with people across the world from all different backgrounds, all different things. Because it's like when I speak to American, it's so amazing how often it comes up, people saying, I don't care whether you're left or right. Well, in the UK, that would never even come into your conversation, ever. We don't have, in general, very rarely would it ever be asked what someone's political affiliation is, because we don't have to register as one or the other. It's just a completely different system. So it's so fascinating when we see how these cultures and these ways of living are very different in different ways. And coming back to the fear, it's interesting. Personally, I'm not sure that fear is, I think fear can be false evidence appearing real, but I don't think at its core it is. I mean, fear is a really important survival instinct that none of us would be here, but we're not meant to hold on to it and carry it. We've all had situations where someone's given us a creep. So, most of us aren't in the situation, some are, but a lot of people aren't in the situation where they're just about to be attacked by a wild animal. But we've all had situations where, should I get into that car? Should I, where you're at a decision point, and do you make the right thing? And that fear is there to sort of warn you now in modern day living, call it fear, call it intuition. I think this is the pedantics of the language, is that we all have different definitions of it. And when we're talking about it, we're assuming everyone's the same thing. So, you know, when the animals knew the tsunami was coming back in, whenever it was, they felt fear and they acted on it and they got away. I think the problem is us humans, we're so flooded by fear deliberately that we then don't react appropriately when we should do. We go into that freeze response often.
Yeah, fight or flight.
Yeah, it's flight, fight, or freeze. And a lot of humans freeze because they're taken out of their instinct, where fear is meant to be driven from instinct, which is why your digestive system shuts down and all the blood goes to your muscles so you can get the hell out of there. But unfortunately, when you engage your brain, we all know that we can override that, and which is good because we can heal ourselves by overriding that. But equally, we can then ignore the warning systems. And I think, you know, the evil genius that has been around, that has deliberately screwed up that navigation system within humans, so we don't know how to approach, how to react appropriately to fear now. It's so constant, it's so overwhelming for people, even people who have a really good spiritual practice. They're still bombarded all the time by these, you know, look at the distraction. I don't think it's an accident, Chantelle, that we started off the conversation about where we direct our energy. Look at the conversation this week with regard to Maori and is it a direct energy weapon? Well, isn't this the whole learnings that we've learned from all the teachings along, that it's the same rules of the universe that can be used for good or bad? Are you using directed energy for destruction, or are you using it for creation?
Exactly. And that is so true. I want to just say thank you so much, Stacey. Wow, I really appreciate your comments as well as your lovely sticker. And to everyone in the chat room today, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoy you, and thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate that. And yes, Catherine, I want to just say as well that, you know, I'm going to rather say it's instinct. You know, when you get that need to, it's like your body or your instinct or your energy or your angels or whatever people call it, right? You walk into a room and you, for me, I like for the split second, oh, there's a bad smell, and it goes. And it's not a physical smell. And I've learned that is one of the things, as I said, that's why we got big nose, right?
They come
so there's a reason for this.
Noses come in really useful.
Yeah, exactly. And I would go and I would like absolutely stand and I'd freeze. And I'd go, where do I need to look?
Yeah.
There. And then because I have the gift of perceiving energy, right? I would, and it's more, and it's not so much about what the person's about. It's more about dum. I see it. I don't really want to go into it, but that you don't go close to. So immediately when you see, but that's trusting your instincts. And when you don't trust those instincts, that's your intuition talking to you. And when you don't trust those instincts, you then step into that situation and fear engulfs you.
Yeah.
So we always get a warning. It's like going into the wild. You know, I've often heard stories like, and birds, right, on the farm. The birds are there, and if humans are coming, those birds are warning those animals, get out the way, and those animals run. And the ones that don't run are the ones that get entrapped or ensnared. So there's always a warning system. And the issue comes when you're not listening to your warning system, which is that instinct to go or stay, don't get in that car, or hang on, I'm being stupid. And then you get in the car and lo and behold, we're always going to get that. And it's up to us. It's up to us to hone our skills. And that, I think, is where we're finding a problem right now, exactly because what you're saying, there's such an overwhelming mass of flooded bullshit that's being given to us. But the only reason it can affect us is because we've disconnected from spiritual self. and our intuition and stuff like that. So if we think about the zapper 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, so many people, that for me was so telling, when so many people gave into that, and not that I'm judging it. I understand people do what they do, and they did it for various reasons. But for those of us who really did have a choice, did you exercise your choice to trust your infinite being, or did you trust something else that you thought was greater or better than you?
That's such a good point. Yeah. It's such an important point, because also it gives us feedback all the time. Now, most of us, you and I are the same age. We are lucky enough to have survived this long through all the mistakes we've made, and we will continue to make more. But it's how you learn from them, because one of the things that a lot of people, and I think all of our listeners are certainly in that category, the gift of the last few years have been that the evil plans are so obvious now that every single person who's watching things like this, or questioning things, or really educating themselves in other ways, are actually saying, what choices am I making in my life? What priorities am I making in my life? Because a lot of people realize that their lives were so busy and so stressful, they didn't have time. I'll come on to explain that in a minute, to look at these things. And this is the issue, as we learn the hard way. There's not a single parent that's chosen to have their children vaccinated, or their pets. It's the same for them. And then it's only normally when something goes wrong that you just think, my God, I wish I'd taken the time to research that better. And we've all been set up in this matrix to live those sort of lives. But if there's one gift that I think that's come out of it, and I'm lucky because my children are grown-ups now, so it's very different to the life we both had when we had toddlers. You're in a very different stage of your life, and therefore you do have different priorities. But I think everyone looking at their lifestyle now and sort of saying, okay, where, for me, my family, my loved one, for the greater good, where do I need to be really researching and sharing it round? That's why we all have different guests a lot of the time on our channels, because we can't and we don't need to be experts in everything, but we want the main things that are affecting the decisions that we're all taking in our lives, that can either be supporting the nefarious agenda or trying to make it bloody difficult for them. We need all these different inputs to come into play so that we can just listen to what makes sense for me. I mean, you and I were having an interesting discussion before we went live on crypto, and we've both got our own opinions on that. And then I picked out something really important that your guest, I can never say his surname, Leo's, how do I say his surname?
Zagami.
Yeah,
isn't he? He's Zagami. He's on. Yeah, he's brilliant.
Anyone who hasn't watched his last interview, go and listen to what he's said about crypto. And I think there's going to be more coming out that next week in your interview with him. But it's
he calls this movement Cyber Satan. It's called Cyber Satan because that's what it is, and it's so true.
Yeah. And it's not about any of us being right. We've all said a million times that we all wish this wasn't true, but equally trying to, it's one of the biggest stresses you can have, where you're trying to change what you can't change. Back to the good old question, can I do something about it? Yes, do something about it. Can I do something? No. Well, there's no point worrying about it then. I know it's easier said than done, but most of us that are just having discussions like this are real empaths, and we want to save the world. We want to warn everyone. We want every single living creature, whether it's a tree, a bunny rabbit, or a human, to live the best life possible. But unfortunately, there's also this thing called free will. And unfortunately, there's some things we can influence, which is mainly us. And there's other things that it's more tricky to.
Absolutely. And I always say, really, it is natural for us on this dimension to look outside of ourselves for any type of validation or whatever it is we're seeking, approval, whatever it might be. But the more people that realize it begins here.
Yeah.
It begins with all the teeny tiny little subtleties. It begins with your feelings. It begins with the first thoughts you have in the morning when you wake up. It begins with how you start your day. It begins with how you've forgiven past transgressions towards yourself and towards others. All of these things play such a subtle. I'm working with a group at the moment, and it really it's amazing. I've got this, and I've stuck with a small group of women for the past 2 or 3 months. And man, oh man, it's powerful. We're not reinventing the wheel at all, right? My gift is that I can access and see frequencies, and I have the ability to sequence them in a way that works. So that's the invisible stuff that I'm able to do. So that's what we're doing. I'm taking everything that's already there and sequencing it. And it's all the feather touch. Life right now is all about the feather touch. So light and so gentle. We've been taught to go, 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 do, thrive, drive, succeed, murder. I mean, headache. I get a headache at that. I seriously get a headache when I think about what we've had to do to motivate ourselves in the past to succeed in life, right? And it's such a relief to know I can be a little bit lazy now. Actually, really lazy. So awesome just to be lazy and to sit and feel and walk in nature and do my yoga and have a glass of wine with my mate on a Friday evening, having pizza, speaking crap, and knowing that I'm just creating as I speak, just by being in the space that I am, and just by loving life, accepting what life has brought me. Not that I like it, because many things, if you had to say to me, do you want to go back to that time? I'd go, oh, hell no, stay away. But, when we go back to that moment and you realize what that moment has brought you and what it's given you in the bigger picture. I mean, if I go back to my fiance's hijacking, which was now at the end of 1996, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that was one of the single most cataclysmic, catalytic, transformative moments that I have ever been gifted with. I knew he left for me. Yeah. I knew that. And I knew that that experience in my life, it's because of that I do the work I do today. That was the catalyst for me. Now, in this country, it's easy to become a victim of your circumstances because it's so, violence is the order of the day here. So when one chooses to take a different perspective and you see that the gift, and I have to say, I have my older sister to thank for that. She's an astrologer and a brilliant one. And she said to me all the time, this can be the biggest gift you've ever received, or it's going to be your biggest curse. And she said, you choose, Chantelle, you choose. And with
he would have chosen as well his soul contract, he would have done it.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
I love your guinea pig in the back.
In the background, but this is the whole point. It's such an important thing. Hindsight is wonderful because we can then receive the lessons that we're not often able to achieve when we're going through real trauma. There's probably not going to be a person. I mean, Carol said here the pressure, and absolutely, and those pressure points will come at different points in people's lives. And it can be overwhelming at the time. And if you're in one of those pressure points, then that's the time for you to look after yourself and your family and not try and save the world, sort of thing. And then there's other people that have got different availability of time. Everyone's got a different role, I've losing 2 of my old guinea pigs over the last week has made me really look at my schedule, because my main mission at the moment is rescuing animals and rehabilitating them, and it gives me the more pleasure than anything else. And I do genuinely believe that's why I can read people's energy so well, because my whole life from sort of 5 o'clock in the morning till goodness knows what time at night is spent out in nature. And then I run in here and sit and do it. Of course, I do my other work as well. But, we've all got different things, but that's not everyone's calling. And other people are doing completely different things. And we've got amazing healers. And then we've also got people that produce food and build buildings and medical healing techniques and you name it, everything. And I think...
But, sorry, and I want to just chime in there. I don't want to interrupt you, but on that point, I think what you've also said is so valid. Everyone is doing what they are here to do.
Yeah.
You know, when we define what is, and I'm going to speak specifically men, because poor men get the biggest criticism for this, that men are so unspiritual. And, you know, lots of girls with daddy issues or male issues or whatever. I've worked with plenty over the years as well. And then my question is often, well, okay, I mean, and obviously I'm not talking about a father who's abused you, whatever. I'm talking about a normal type situation. I'll say, right, okay, was your father there? Yes. Did he pay your school fees? Yes. Did he provide a roof over your head? Yes.
Yeah.
Did he provide food in your belly? Yes. Was he there at your sports events? Often, yes. Or if not him, was your mother there? Yes. Did he make you feel safe? Yes. Could he communicate with you emotionally? No!
Yeah.
I'm going, hold the phone. Maybe the problem is not so much with him, but with you. Because you are not recognizing that that is his love language. Most men cannot communicate emotionally yet, and they're learning more and more, because remember, the men have also been conditioned, as have women. But so if a man, I mean, I look at my brothers, they definitely don't do yoga and sing the arm.
In all seriousness, should they? Because when there's such an important area you've raised, now, very controversial, but if people haven't seen it, go to my channel and look at the first one. I've got another one to do where I did my thoughts. It's not a very long video on a Candice Owen and Andrew Tate video. And some of the stuff, it's like, quite honestly, when the shit hits the fan, as it is at the moment, different people should have different roles. I've always said I am brilliant at working with animals. I'm not squeamish. I can work with horrific injuries, horrific emotional abuse, but I can't go into the tunnels to rescue children. I don't have the physical skills and I don't have the emotional resilience to do that. It takes a very different personality to be able to do that. And this whole thing where we expect everyone to fulfill every role, at the moment, emotional men have got a place, but equally so have men that are able to shut off their emotions and do the protective role. And let's not forget that we need those as just as much, and to expect everyone to be able to fulfill. I'm very emotional, as you know, and a lot of people would say over emotional, but actually it's got some real advantages. But would I be able to go and fight on a battlefield? Probably not very well, unless I got that under more control. So let's appreciate that everyone has these different roles. And at the moment, I'm crying out for some men, quite frankly, that can control their emotions and can step into the role, because there's not many of them around. And that's not a criticism of men. It's a deliberate programming, you know? So if there's any out there, I do have a very nice man, but you know, I think people are re-establishing what they need. You know, are you going to talk yourself out of these situations, or do you want someone that can be shelter, that can grow food and can do some sort of protection if it's needed?
And I love what you said. You again raised a very, very important point, that we definitely need men as well as women, right? But I'm talking more like from the perspective of women, because all I hear is how unemotional men are. Yeah. And I'm going like, you know, I've had very cool men in my life, I have to say, in terms of my family, my cousins, my brothers, my ex-partners. I've had cool guys, you know. Yeah. So, you know, I really have. But I mean, it's like, there's a time and a place. So in my opinion, you know, there's a time we've got to learn, you know, when you have a baby or when you're dealing with your children at home, be more gentle, be more emotional, be more connected. But then when you're out there and then you're in the military and doing stuff, of course, you can't be thinking about your child with chickenpox at home. No. You've got to be able to switch that off, do your stuff. And this is why men are fantastic, because they bloody can do that. Oh boy, they can do that. And we just think about the entire world. Actually, it's been built by men. I would imagine 99% of the buildings and structures and infrastructures that have been put up have been done by men. I can't imagine women have done much of that.
No,
so there we go.
I'm happy to let them do it. You know, I mean, you know, I grew up in a generation where you were meant to fulfill the man's role and the woman's role at the same time, because my parents' generation didn't have that. So my generation, like, I don't know what it was like when you grew up, but we wanted everything. We wanted the careers. We wanted this. Now I can see what a program that is. Hindsight's wonderful. Yes. If you're a man or a woman, you're going to have every spectrum of that. And some people, some women don't want children. That's absolutely fine. We've all got our own individual role, but none of us. It's like I've been married for, I don't even know how many years I've been married for, but basically my husband and I have been together since we were 18. You go through a lot of changes in that. And we've known
it's like 40 years, Catherine. Nearly 40 years you've been with your hair. That's awesome.
It's like you go through huge evolutions in that, and you all change and you evolve, and you should do, because I would hate to be the same person I was when I was 16. You know, there's a time and a place for everything. And I think allowing people to change, Bryce and I talked about this yesterday, I think it's wonderful, and accepting that different people are at different pressures in their life, different stages of their life. But I think what we can keep doing is recognizing and keep pointing out, yes, what's happened in Maui is absolutely terrible. Do I personally know what's caused it? No. Do I believe it's nefarious? Yes. Does me knowing whether it was a BOMB or a directed weapon or whatever change what's happened? No. Could I be putting my effort into something more constructive to do with that? Yes. And, you know, we've got to go through this cycle. It's like when you go through the healing cycle or the grief cycle, you have to go through these different stages. You're going to have the stages where you having the conversations, what's caused or whatever. That's important, but it's important we move through these cycles and not just stay at one point.
Absolutely. It's so true. And, you know, it's so true what you were saying also, you know, about going through the cycles of grief as well, because that is such an important aspect of us as humans, to acknowledge that. You know, I mean, I, for one, when I see, even though I don't know anyone in Hawaii, but spiritually, those are my brothers and sisters, and I really feel that grief. I feel it. And I feel the loss. And you know, but the thing is now, and as you say, and to be in the right place, how do we do? What do we do with this? Do we sit here exposing it? My question, what I do in those situations, I will always pray. I'm a great believer in prayer. And if I'm uncertain, I'll say, well, show me the way. If I need to be there, show me how to get there. And then I'll let it go. And I'm telling you, if the opportunity comes along and you're meant to be or doing or in a certain situation, then it's going to come along. And remember, again, it's up to you to take it. Yeah. Right? It's up to you to take that opportunity. And that's where our fears set in often. Well, is it maybe, what if, it's So then that's why I say, if you've asked for something and it arrives, yes, you've got to say, is this the right opportunity? Your heart will tell you. Oh, but no, I don't know. So there's all that uncertainty. You've got to be able to know thyself. This is why Jesus says, know thyself. You've got to know yourself well enough to know what's your fear and what's your instinct. Because your instinct is what we were talking about earlier on, that bad smell. You know, when I sometimes work with animals and they've also got cancer or something, I'll immediately it's a smell I get, and then it's gone. I agree. And then I'll see which part of the body it's affected. And that's where I can hone in. And it's the same thing with humans. Somewhat different, because humans have more, obviously, verbal abilities. So we're able to talk and clarify things more. But it's like understanding yourself and trusting yourself enough to know that's my instinct telling me, no. Or that's my fear trying to hold me back. And again, Only with enough inner work, prayer, meditation, acting. You know, the thing is, we can pray and meditate all we want, but we still have to then put ourselves through the practice. We still have to take that leap of faith. We've still got to put a boundary down if we need to say no, and all we've ever been able to do is say yes. And I'm going back to basics here. So you've got to be able to have the courage to step up to the plate and know that it's in you and that it's supporting you. Or whether God is or Jesus, whoever is supporting you, you've still got to step to enable them to support you. You're the one that's got to act on that.
No one can do that for you. No one can give you that courage. You've got to do the inner work. And, you know, there's countless examples where people really surprise themselves, but they surprise themselves in a good way. And there's a lot of people surprise themselves in a bad way. And I know I'm labeled like that, but there's a lot of people who are disappointed in how they react in a crisis. But that's just another lesson. It's just another lesson about where your next work is, sort of thing. There's not many people, there's so many. I know most of our history, we can't really believe a lot of it, but there are some key lessons in history. And one of the lessons is how consistently it's the majority of people that sit there and let the atrocities go on. They're the ones that have got so much to answer for. If the most of the people that are leading them, they're either psychopaths or goodness knows what else, and they genuinely believe in their cause. But it's the rational people that sit by there and do nothing. So everyone here will have their calling, whatever that might be. And the main thing, I think, is what you've just said there. The key thing is to listen to that and do it. And don't compare your calling to someone else's. You know, it's like, again, everyone wants alternative media now, but not alternative media should be fulfilling every needs. Everything's got a niche, and you'll be drawn to ones which fulfill your niche. And if you're suddenly finding you're getting brainwashed by them, then that's your job to tune in and notice that and question the agenda, because there is a huge amount of infiltration. There's a huge amount of infiltration, and anyone that's encouraging to listen to their information, and that's okay because it's all in control, I would question.
Exactly. You know, for me, it's simple.
Comments.
There's a difference between a controller and a guide.
Yeah.
And again, this is where it's very subtle, because to the inexperienced eye, especially when you're coming out of a bit of a haze, right, of control and manipulation, to sort of see, because on a grander scheme of things, these controls and manipulations are so vast and so subtle that we haven't been able to see it. But then over time, people like ourselves have been putting information out on the channels, what to look for, what signage, what celebrities, what does it mean when people are doing this or whatever it is they're doing. Don't just think they're posing. There's something there, you know. So when you see these things,
that now and put it everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
But it is, yeah. It's a mad world, isn't it? It's complicated. I completely get why everyone is overwhelmed. Not everyone, I know some people aren't, and people will go through stages of being overwhelmed, and that's when you reach out to other ones that can support you through that, because we're all going to go through different ups and downs at different times. But
yes,
it's crazy, isn't it? I heard you briefly, I haven't listened to all of it, in your latest show with Jessie, where you were talking about the sharks getting a lot more aggressive and things like this. And I heard a fascinating on the Inspired channel. It's a beautiful, I'll share it later when I get a moment on my community page. It's a beautiful video he did. And I think, yes, the whole man-made corruption of nature. I mean, I so enjoyed my chat with Dane Wigington on the geoengineering, because this guy has just researched this for 20 years and got so many facts to back it up. But yes, we've messed around with the planet so much, and messed around with the planet and Mother Gaia or Earth, whatever you want to call its ability to self-regulate and heal herself. But equally at the same time, she's picking up on our resonance, and humans have such a dominant energy field. You've got to see, only got to see that we interact with animals. They can pick up smell, pick up our energy fields and everything so much, the pheromones we're giving up. So if the mass energy field of humanity is fear, then of course the earth is going to respond to that and take some action. So it's this very fine line between, you know, where this cycle of man-made thing ends and where nature takes over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've actually, I have to say, I listened to a podcast with a guy the other day, and he was actually captured and taken off Earth for a long time. And well, it actually wasn't a long time. I mean, when he came back into his body, he was the same age.
Yeah.
But in that time, it was 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
What a fascinating podcast that was, because it talks about the manipulations behind the scenes. I'm actually inviting him onto my show, so I'm not. Don't want to say too much, because yeah, we're still in the planning stages of that. But really speaks about the behind the scenes manipulations and what is real and what is not real. Because I think we're going to be, or when I say real, what is created by God and nature, and what is man manipulated.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be shocked to realize how much of our natural, beautiful planet, so to speak, just on that note, has been manipulated.
I do agree, but where do you draw the line on that? Because the whole point is God created man as well, and
exactly
free will. So I think there's sort of having to compartmentalize things. I don't think there's anything in nature you can compartmentalize. There's always a reaction, action, reaction, energy flow going, and it's absolutely fascinating. But it does give us a lot of clues, information like that. Again, going back to what we started with about where it's most constructive that we direct our energy. You know, our energy, creation energy, can be directed very powerfully.
The whole thing is, for me, is like when we are in alignment with ourselves, because that's really what we're aligning with, and of course God, because we co-create with our creator.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't even have to direct it anymore then. We just become magnetic. So it's like there's no intention set for anything, because in that intention setting, as subtle as what it is, we are still manipulating energy. Right? Because we can. And I'm not saying that's bad or good. It is what it is. And as you say, God created a man in the image of the divine. So if we as man, humanity, are doing all these nasty concoctions, and that's what I keep saying, we must remember God created Lucifer. If you want to see Lucifer's head of the dark, just for layman's terms, Lucifer was God's favorite angel. And God does not make mistakes. God knew what God was doing when God created Lucifer, because God knew that Lucifer would be carrying humanity's dark or shadowy aspects, right? So everything around that, everything that the shadow creates, is also God's will.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. When we get to that point of realizing things are what they are, we are really all in this massive game called life, really just experiencing ourselves in the name of God or our creator. So we're going to go haywire for a while, because there are so many things to experience, right? And until we get to that point of saying, okay, now this ride on this level, if you will, is over. Whew, what a ride that was. And then you can stand and observe without judgment, and judgment being in good or in bad. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to like everything. Of course, you can like and dislike stuff. That's your free will. But you stop judging it as good or bad, because you realize then everything is what it is because it simply is what it is. And not you or anyone else is going to change that. So then we come into that place of acceptance.
Yeah.
And when we're in that place of acceptance, then we become magnetic.
Yeah, and every animal in nature and plants can to have this same ability. They just use it differently. It's just like every animal in nature has a different spectrum of light that they can see. They have a different way of projecting their energy. You can look to see a hunter, you know, a cheetah hunting its prey, to see how it can paralyze it with its spray. So I think when we realize we all have this amazing ability, and I had such a lovely chat with Don Jose Ruiz, whose father wrote the 4 Agreements last week. He's an amazing,
wow, stunning. One of my favorite books, I have to tell you, the 4 Agreements.
Oh, it's my absolute Bible, and he is so beautiful. He's been through such an amazing shamanic existence and journey of ups and downs in his life. But you know, I asked him, I said, well, what in your opinion is the purpose of our life here as humans? He said to enjoy it. And I think that's such an important message, because we've been gifted this existence. And absolutely, I'm not saying bury your head in the sand and do nothing about the awareness, but it's again comes back to our opening topic about fear, is let us move through these cycles, but not forget that we don't have to stay. It's a choice if we choose to stay stuck at any of those, because most people watching this have got so many tools in their toolkit that if they recognize they're getting stuck in a certain place on that fear cycle, to do something about it and take action, because that will become our reality. And, you know, we've all got this ability to co-create, and it is a co-creation from everything, you know, and the earth is co-creating in that process with us.
Exactly. She carries our consciousness. It's so beautiful.
Lovely. And I think, you know, I do think it's absolutely hysterical. You know, if the aliens are looking down, which I so strongly believe they are, I mean, they're going to have a laugh, aren't they, really? Or horror. You know, some humans choose to watch horror movies. Some people watch reality TV. Everyone thought,
some people watch the Kardashians. Exactly. And that's kind of halfway between a horror movie and reality TV.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? You know, one of my best friends watched horror movies. I've never watched a horror movie in my life because I can't watch them. I just can't. Why would I want to even go there with my imagination? But other people absolutely love them, and it doesn't bother them at all. So this is the beauty of what we're meant to see. And I think remembering that, yes, at times like this, when there's so many people and animals and planets suffering, it can be overwhelming. But we've been given this gift of life, and we want to enjoy it.
Absolutely. And if you are here, and if you are on this earth in this moment, gosh, and you know, I want to just say, I know there are moments, I deal with a lot of people, and my heart opens up to each and every one that I deal with, honestly, and everyone has got their own personal struggles. And I know that so many people feel overwhelmed by what they're going through. And, you know, it brings us back to the beginning of the conversation. And I just hope that what we've said here today makes a difference to some people, because when we realize these things in the cells of our bodies, not just as a rushing thought or a tsunami going through our brain and hoping to catch a glimmer of sunshine, and within that tornado, it becomes very difficult. But really just to sit and close your eyes for 10 minutes and just breathe and just remember what you need to, and it'll come to you. You know, it's not that difficult. I promise you it's not. It might seem difficult. And what's ahead of us, or what's happened that we think we might have to deal with. And I'm going to challenge any of you to speak to any of my clients or students who've come in with that overwhelming fear. Man, within 2 hours, your reality has changed. I will speak to you in a way that within 2 hours, your reality changes. And it really is about perceptions, what's between your ears. I read a beautiful, I actually posted it on Facebook with Martina Navratilova yesterday. And it was something that she'd written many years ago when she was 47 or something. And they said, well, how are you so, you know, powerful and in such good shape the age of 47. She says, the ball doesn't know my age. She says, the only problem is what sits between our ears. That's 6 inches between your ears.
Yeah.
And I so resonate with that. When we change the way we think about ourselves, about life, everything starts changing, subtleties, and it just becomes like that beautiful journey forward. And you meet people, you know, you meet people synchronistically. The right people show up at the right time. You know, the right books show up at the right time. The right podcast show up at the right time.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's when these things start happening, you know that you're in synchronicity. And that's really what you want to be. And of course, you're going to fall off the wagon sometimes and scrape your knee or crack your toe. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But just don't give up. That's all. You know, we going through some turbulent waters right now as human beings. And we don't know, and we're all in our little meat suits. We all look the same. And many of us don't know who we can trust and what we can trust. Well, what I want to just say is that if you are being told to do something in order to have something so that you can be something by somebody else, that's the wrong person or organization. Anyone who empowers you to find your own inner guidance connected with your higher being is probably more on track, and whoever that might be for you. So to encourage yourself just to grow within.
Sometimes being a good friend is just pointing out to people when you think that they might need to question a bit more as well, because the whole point is when you're the type of person that sees the best in everyone, you know, we all know none of us would have got to where we are now if deception wasn't really effective. And brainwashing, you know, there are master comedians out there, and I think, you know, sometimes that's what good friends, good families do, is are prepared to have those tough conversations with you to say, look, you know, I went in that river and there's a crocodile in there, don't get in. You know, I've seen.
No, you're being a dick, stop.
I'm not making it up. There is a crocodile in there, do not get in. And then if you choose, you've got free will, you get in and you get eaten. Well, lucky crocodile. You know,
exactly.
So, yeah, but yeah, no, thank you so much for everyone joining us today.
That was so cool. I really, really enjoyed this, and we will. We need to book a permanent monthly date.
I think we do, definitely.
Yeah, because you know, I know that you are a monthly guest. I know that we just haven't got all our days and weeks sorted now, but I always love having conversations with you. You're super smart. You're an empath. You're intelligent. You've got what it takes to lead a lot of people and animals through turbulent times. So from my heart to yours, Catherine, thank you.
Thank you. And back to you. Thank you so much for everyone that interacts on this. This is just really, really important. You know, I love the lives. I've stopped doing some of the lives because the trouble is YouTube make it, unless you do them all the time, it's more difficult to for people to find them. But yeah, that's an interesting thing in itself. But yeah, it's really lovely to do lives and have those interactions with people. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm loving our guests, our viewers today, Layla, Stacey Jane, Carol. It's so good to have you girls here, really, just to see everyone and, you know, watch your comments. And I'm sorry I can't really always reply in the moment, especially when it's just me in the, can't always see the comments and respond in the moment. But I really just want to say thank you so much. And yes to us transmuting our fears, embracing our fears, because our fears are not meant to crush us. Our pain is not meant to crush us. Your fear is really that vibration that tells you instinctively yes or no, stop or go, whatever. But it's up to you to tune yourself so that you can answer, you can hear the language of your body. And and as you say, I mean, fear is important. I mean, if there's a wild something coming, you want to know what's behind you, and you can move out at the minute, the second that a ball or a rock or something comes freakily coming down towards you, you know. So yeah, and you know, we designed like that. We must never forget that. That's what we designed for. We're super smart, we're super intelligent as a species. We must never forget that. You know, we've been ritually, systematically dumbed down, and we're far from dumb.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
on that note,
Yeah, we'll be back, as they famously say.
we'll be back.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys and girls, for watching, guys. I love today's
Thank
show.
you
And I
all.
love Catherine back. Yeah. And take it easy. Enjoy your Thursday. It's my mummy's birthday today. Did I say that already?
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm taking my mama out to lunch later.
Lovely.
So, yes, she deserves it. She's super cool. And now my street child has just arrived, as you can hear him shouting at me outside.
Brilliant. Go help. Go help. Yeah.
Yeah, wait, I'm gonna find my brand. I gotta switch this thing off here. Okay, solutions, no, that's the wrong one. I'm gonna try this one. I think I might have the wrong one. Okay, guys, love you madly. Mwah, thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye.
Oh no, wrong one.
Wrong one. Which one? You're
Wait,
still
I'm not prepared for myself today.
You're
Okay,
still
there
live.
we go.
You're still live. We're going to be live forever.
I'm trying to put the exit on. This is how I embrace my fears, guys. I'll sit in front of you making an ass out of myself because I don't know how to press this.
Just press the leave the studio.
Hi.
You're still live. You're still live.
And oops, and broadcast.